Have you ever noticed that some of the emotions you experience are really bothersome to you and you feel like blocking them? Maybe there are certain situations in which you've trained yourself to totally ignore how you feel, even though letting yourself be mindful of the emotion might be better for you. Many of us often avoid certain uncomfortable emotions we feel. There are many reasons why this might be so. Maybe we've lived in an environment where it wasn't encouraged to be open to what we feel. Or simply, we think that it would be useless to let ourselves experience the emotions. In DBT, it is important to learn how not to block the emotions we are feeling and how to be unafraid of them. This can be very helpful in regulating our overwhelming emotions. The uncomfortable negative emotions are part of life, and you can benefit from learning how to navigate them better. Emotion exposure. Step 1. Chronic emotion. Try to become mindful about an emotion that you experience often and that you chronically have a hard time accepting. A helpful way to identify such an emotion is to think about a repetitive, problematic behavior that you engage in often as a result of that emotion. Take your time. Remember how you practice being mindful of your emotions and of the situations you are in when you are experiencing this emotion. For example, maybe you fight a lot with your loved ones, and although you feel angry when you are having these arguments, perhaps the underlying emotion behind is feeling rejected or fear of abandonment. As you are doing the steps, write down the answers to the steps in the worksheet. Step 2, observe the emotion. During the day or the following days, try to be observant and open to notice when this emotion arises in you. Remember that since you've probably been trying to avoid experiencing this emotion, it may feel a little new to you. Notice that in order to apply the skill in this exercise, you first have to get familiar with all of the steps so that you will be prepared to apply them. Step 3, emotion exposure. Once you start observing the emotion you are working on, take 5 minutes to observe the process. Sit down and take a few deep breaths. Observe the emotion. What are you feeling? Do you feel any bodily sensations as a result of the emotion? What is the intensity of the emotion that you are feeling? Do you feel like the emotion has reached its peak in intensity or that it will perhaps increase or decrease? Be open to the emotion you are feeling, even though you might feel a little uncomfortable. Remember that you are getting out of your comfort zone and you are making progress. Allow for the emotion to run its course. Now that you've been observing your emotion for a while, did something about it change? Maybe the intensity changed, or maybe you started feeling something else. This process is like a wave or a cycle that is temporary and changing. This can help you remember that the feeling of discomfort will eventually pass. Step 4, emotion without action. Observe how it feels to just sit with the emotion and not act on the emotional urge you are feeling, like not engaging in the usual action. For example, if you usually lash out at people because you feel rejected, how does it feel to just observe the emotion without taking any action? Note that emotions are temporary and are like waves. Sometimes, in situations of overwhelming emotions, it is better to skillfully observe how we feel without taking the usual action. Use the worksheet and write down how this experience went for you. Thank you for joining us. This was the exercise on emotion exposure.